It's Friday, October 22nd, and you, my friend, are listening to The Drive. Catherine, do you realize that is the second last time I will ever open up a podcast saying that? How are you, my friend? I am sad, but I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to The Drive.
I'm speechless. I can't believe this is the almost last episode. It had been fun. It was a good ride. And I was just telling you, like, what is going to remind me of the week, what has happened, what is going on. It's going to be pick up.
I was having that thought the other day. It's funny you mentioned that. I may still do a periodic episode of The Drive because even if it's just once a month, because I still think it needs to be done. But maybe not. We'll see. We'll see. I could be busy and just forget. So, but it's true. There's no other show in the industry that recaps what's going on in the sales and marketing B2B world and what's the news. And I think it's unfortunate, but you know, life is full of choices. With that said, let's get into it. The road ahead, we'll remind you one more time that coming up is the B2B Marketing Expo in London, England, middle of November. We were on a logistics meeting the other day talking about, vaccinations and masking and entry requirements into the country and accommodations and giveaways and all that kind of stuff. We're having a VIP party. So if you go to the show, we're actually having a VIP party. So it's a big party that everybody can be there at, and you can join. It's great. It's the end of the first day. I think that's the 15th. Don't quote me on that. It's a Tuesday. But there's going to be a roped off section, Catherine, a special roped off section for VanillaSoft because we're a platinum sponsor. And so we're going to have all the wait staff wearing VanillaSoft shirts and wearing VanillaSoft masks, and there's going to be a burly, big-ass bouncer standing in front of the rope, and it's like, yeah, you're cool, you can come in. No, you're not cool, you can't come in. So that's what it's going to be. So basically, Catherine, you and I, of course, would get in, but Daniel, our producer, he would not get in, just so you know. That's just the way it goes. So that's coming up. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. The B2B Marketing Expo. Would love to see you there. I'm speaking twice on stage. Great stuff. Talking about shitty sales emails is one. And another one is all the things about social selling your mother never told you. So it should be some good topics. But with that, why do we do this job? We do it to make money. So let's get into money. Catherine, there's a company that just got a Series A that I had never heard of before. And according to their press, they have like hundreds of thousands of users. And they just raised, how much did they raise here? They raised a Series, I think I was 11 million. I could be wrong, but I'll go find it. Yeah, 11 million in Series A. So what's that company name and what do they do, my friend?
Oh, you're asking me now. I thought that you were still asking your
I'm asking you. We have to work better. This is why the show is ending. There's no bridging, so we have to end the show.
Oh my God. All right. So these folks are called Copy AI. It's interesting. Their business is pretty interesting. We were talking about it just before the show, right? So they apparently rolled out their services, their offerings on Twitter, and they started to see good traction of people, interested into getting outsourced that creation of the copy marketing when they've, built their business or they're going through a rebrand or anything that will apply for the moment. And they just simply took it from there. Then they saw the domain was available, and now they've created an actual business around it. And in a year, so the big thing is that not only they raised 11 million, they also are hitting their first year of life. It's interesting. My dad does have a saying, which is no offense or anything whatsoever, but it's from the laziness of the human being that the big inventions come out, right? So people that are struggling to write content, are struggling to be creative enough, or whatever it is, this is just a quick, easy solution for them to get it going.
It's a really cool story. So to Catherine's point about the backdrop of how this came to be, these developers got early access to a very powerful language generation model from OpenAI. It's called GPT-3. And what's interesting is the model learns how to talk. The artificial model, intelligence model, learns how to talk by reading trillions of words across the internet. So it's just reading what you and I say, right? It's really what it's doing. And because it's doing the whole internet, it gets really knowledgeable about little topics. So they started using this to create copy and writing, right? Whether it's marketing copy initially, because what it was is they were making these apps and then they were trying to sell these apps and go figure, well, developers are great at developing, where the developers struggled was making marketing copy because that's not their forte. They're developers, not marketers. So they used their own technology to make marketing copy. And apparently it worked really, really, really well. Yeah. So now they have almost 400,000 people using it a year later. So, and it's pretty simple. If you go to copy.ai, the website, it's very cool. It's 3 steps. This is how it works. You select your type of copy. I want a headline. I want a blog. I want a product description, whatever it is. Then you describe your product. Just enter the name of your company in 1 or 2 sentences and what you do, right? Whatever it is you're talking about. And then you get 10 results at a time. And you can use that tool over and over again. And what was so interesting was they have a little slide there. It's a stupid little slide. What can you create with Copy AI? Digital ad copy, social media copy, website copy. But sure enough, sales copy. Now, I've presented on this numerous times about, I've done webinars, we've done ebooks on different kinds of email templates, right? We talk about Josh Braun had his TTTT model. We talked about PAS, PAS. We talked about BAB. We talked about ADA. And sure enough, they have sales copy, pain, agitate, solution, PAS. Before, after, bridge, BAB. Attention, interest, desire, action, ADA. That's the formula it's following. So I admit, never heard of it. But because of the drive, you, my friends, and I and Catherine now know it. And there are almost 400,000 users will go up by at least 10 or 20 from VanillaSoft before the day is done. So that's a really cool one. So that's kind of cool. All right.
It's true.
Next up, we're always talking about, what are we talking about, Catherine? We talk about data vendors. We talk about ABM vendors. We talk a little bit about CRM. We talk a little bit about conversational intelligence vendors. And then we talk about sales engagement vendors. Well, guess what? We're here on another sales engagement vendor. Groove has just raised a Series B of $45 million. And that brings their total funding up to $61 million. Now, what's interesting here is they did not disclose their valuation following round B. And that's very revealing, because that's like what everybody talks about is it's not even the money, it's the valuation and how close are you to being a unicorn. So if they don't disclose your valuation, that usually says the growth isn't what you thought it would be. But $45 million is not an insignificant amount of money. So they're probably right in the middle, be my guess. They're saying that their enterprise ARR is up 114% over the past few years, which is really sounds brilliant, right? But you got to read between the lines. They didn't say their ARR. They said their enterprise ARR, right? So historically, they've been more of a small to medium-sized vendor. They're trying to go upstream, which is not uncommon. So, if you have 5 candidates and customers and who are enterprise, and you go up to 12, then you just kind of grew roughly 114%. So I don't know what it means, but the stats are good. So anyway, this continues. I love the quote they have in here. This is from an analyst at Forrester, and it's the same thing we've been talking about before, we have talked about here, and I'm going to get Catherine's conversations on this because she runs the sales team. She uses VanillaSoft. We are in the same category. We target different markets, so we don't really see them. But this is the Anthony McPartland from Forrester says, this notion of the sales engagement platform as a cockpit for sellers is likely to continue to drive further integrations between other sales tech categories and these platforms as the advantages of bringing everything to the seller where they sell become more widely recognized. Now, two things. One, what he's really saying is the sales engagement platform is just going to become the place where sales reps live, not CRM. You saw SalesLoft do that with the Modern Revenue Workspace rebranding they did. You saw Outreach acquired Canopy to do sales forecasting and analytics. Same thing. It's the cockpit. The second thing that's interesting here is they quoted Forrester, but Forrester did not provide a quote for this release. This comes from a recent blog post. So they've lifted this from a blog post. See, these are the things we marketers do. You have to be careful on this stuff. So that's interesting. Forrester did not proactively provide a release. So they didn't release the valuation. They did not get a proactive quote from an analyst. So congrats to my competition. I'm intrigued by their circumstances. But for all the investors and employees of Groove, this is an exciting time for you. Catherine, what's your reaction? Because again, you and your team live in VanillaSoft every single day, which is doing comparable things to what Groove does. Does this surprise you? Are we going to see more of this? What's your thoughts?
CRMs are not the most friendly users, friendly using tools. Everyone hates using the CRMs. It's just, a bunch of objects that are usually on their own. Reporting is not that easy to create. It has a lot of issues. And then, of course, it's just when the relationship has already kind of been established and it's to manage those accounts or those customers. So I do feel that the sales engagement portion of the entire cycle is where the real data, information, and impact is at the end of the day, right? Is where you need to have your entire arsenal ready to be able to run analytics, to be able to improve your processes, to be able to have things integrated to increase your chances of connectivity and so forth. That's where obviously all the insights will remain as well as you are assessing and evaluating your marketing campaigns, your brand strategy, you call it, right? That's, again, where the feedback is coming from. And so it does make sense that there's a lot more attention in that front and enhancing that front. So again, what I'm seeing, which is similar to what you just said, is the increase as well on the need of integrations. So that having a smooth and nice flow of information into a CRM or a more centralized space for hosting data, but not to manage the day-to-day from the reps in those places. That's what I see. This one, and what I wanted to say, though, is it's interesting the perspective that you brought into these press release, because it's true. You can say we doubled our sales, but if you were from zero and went to selling one deal, there you go.
That's more than doubling. That's infinity. But from 1 to 2, that would be double.
Daryl, really? No, don't do that to me.
If I go from 0 to 1, I'm not doubling.
That.
And folks, she's in charge of my sales team. That's right. That's right.
Welcome to our world.
Welcome to our world. And yeah, I bring the eye of a marketer who has experience, perhaps, messaging creatively. So you can start to pick up on that. All right. With that, let's move it along to corporate affairs. Short list this week. Interesting company, Stamply. So Stamply, and if you're not familiar with them, Stampli, Stamply, and they've launched a digital, if you will, credit card. Digital, meaning you're not going to physically get a plastic card given to you. It's digital. You're going to say, here's a PDF, and here's your number and your PIN and your expiration date, and that's it. It's digital. So let's explain what's going on here. And a lot of sales folks won't really maybe have any experience with this, but every marketer in the world will. All right. So Stamply, they're a SaaS company. What they do is they streamline corporate invoice management. Okay. So Said another way, people in the company spend money, especially in marketing. They spend money on AdWords, or they spend money on a graphic designer, or they spend money on a writer, or they spend money on a contractor. And then these people, they send us invoices. So Stamply is handling those invoices and then making sure those invoices are paid. All right. So Stamply's not issuing invoices. They're paying. This is an accounts payable solution. That's the setup. Now, when the invoice is paid by a check or a wire transfer, or even a third-party payment service, accounts payable, has pretty substantial, strict rules and procedures to make sure it's handled correctly. We haven't violated any spending rules. Straightforward stuff. The issue is, especially in marketing, a lot of the services we use, and sales is that's the same way here. Think about this. If you subscribe to VanillaSoft, the chances are you put it on your company, you put it on a credit card. And then we give you a subscription. We take a payment every month or every quarter or every 6 months or every year, whatever your term is, et cetera. And it's just automatic. Boom. And if you don't pay, the service gets turned off, right? So that's the genesis of SaaS. So whether it's a one-time vendor or a recurring vendor, it's a credit card thing. Now, the problem is many of these credit card payments are paid by employees on their own credit card, and then they set an expense report. And when you do that, there's no controls. Zero. So I could go start spending a boatload of money and say, "Okay, pay me," and you're like, "What?" Or I may not submit my expense report for like a year, and the accounting is going to go nuts, and the auditors are going to go nuts. So that's the setup. With this new digital card, they basically, the accounts payable team is now able to give key people in the organization a digital company credit card, and on it they can set limits. You can spend up to $1,000. Expiration dates, this is only good for 3 months. And when those people use the card, then all those transactions, because it's on a Stamply credit card, are automatically captured and processed like other invoicers. And then the person who holds the card, maybe the head of the VP of marketing, is reminded, don't forget to upload the receipt because we need that proof so we can do taxes and stuff. So that way they have complete controls. So that's a long-winded explanation. And you know what? I think it's a brilliant, inspired idea for having controls, because I watch this happen over and over and over again. How many salespeople, Catherine, ever happened to you? Sales rep goes out. Now, this is pre-COVID times. Takes the client for a round of golf. Takes them for a nice meal. And all of a sudden, that nice meal is a $2,000 meal. Imagine if they used a Stamply credit card who has a budget of $500 on it, and that's it. That's all you can spend. That's a way to manage the process. I love it. I think it's great. I'll shut up now, Catherine. I've talked way too much. What do you think? And the answer is not, yes, Daryl, you're right. You talk way too much, just so we're clear on that.
But yes, Daryl, you did talk you had a really long, interesting monologue. So there's nothing much I can add. I agree with you. It does streamline and makes it easier for companies to simply manage and have a more control on the expanding spending entirely, as well as the ability to pay invoices quicker, right? So, man, digital is the new norm. Like everything needs to be enabled for digital transmission. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good timing for these folks for sure.
Yeah. So there you go. I always like to see cool innovations. There's two right there today, guys. Stamply and Copy.ai. Only because you listen to The Drive. You're going to miss us, aren't you? All right. Let's move it on to water cooler talk. Okay, Catherine. I'm going to throw it out there. I have been guilty this last week of having many conversations.
I can't believe this is a topic.
Well, it's just a question. It's actually going to be a teaser. About performance improvement plans, PIPs, as we like to call them. So the conversation, I was on Twitter as recently as a day or so ago with my good friend Dale Dupree of the Sales Rebellion. By the way, I love Dale. He's a rock star. High integrity guy.
Good human being.
Yes, and we were actually getting worked up. Dale's position was, if you ever have to use a PIP, you have failed as a leader. And my position was, no leader wants to use a PIP. A PIP is the last resort when all else has failed. And by the way, a PIP isn't a sales thing. A PIP is an HR thing. I can apply a PIP to any person on any team across the department. And in the end, we actually kind of got to a consensus, because Dale wrote an article on LinkedIn months ago, maybe 7 months ago, where he talks about how he's never issued a PIP in his life. Yet if you read it, he actually has. And I called him out on that. And I said, I quoted his article. I quoted his one sentence in his LinkedIn profile. And I'm sorry, his LinkedIn article, which kind of said, you're not meeting the company's needs. Take the employee out for lunch, nice, warm, encouraging, supportive. Listen, dude, you're not hitting the company requirements for performance. And so over the next 2 weeks, I need you to either step up, or if you don't plan on doing that, or you can't do that, then use those 2 weeks to look for another job. We're going to pay for you. You use those 2 weeks to look for another job. And I said, Dale, that's a PIP. That's a freaking PIP. You got 2 weeks to get your shit together, or you can leave. So that's the framework of Dale and I, but it is an ongoing conversation. Do they work ever? Or are there other ways we should be using tactics to hold people accountable? Catherine, I know you don't necessarily have an answer, but I know you have an opinion, and I want to hear it.
There's no right or wrong. This is definitely one thing that has to be addressed as a tool, right? So as a manager, your responsibility is to give the right tools to your people so that they are successful. Allow them to find themselves and give them the guidance to validate where they want to be, really. That's what drives, in my opinion, that's what drives the commitment. That's what drives, initiative. That's what gives them the fire in the belly, is where do you want to be? Where are you right now? Do you want to be here? Where do you want to be? Is it here or not, right? So having candid conversations prior to an actual PIP are very important. Why are they not hitting their numbers? Why are they not delivering against expectations? Why are they so, absent in their day-to-day, right? Once you get to understand that, you will help them try to get to a better state. But you have to come with that honesty in place, right? We cannot force people to just do a better job with a PIP. If you come thinking that the PIP will just make a miracle and everything will start to work after, is not the case. The PIP would definitely be, in my opinion, and that I really don't like them because, in my opinion, it has a very strong mental, impact. And as soon as you get a PIP, like in my case, Daryl, and we've talked about it, when I know someone is evaluating me, I shut down. I've lost my driver's license test so many freaking times. And my husband is so upset at me. And he's like, you know how to drive. I give you the car. You go with the kids everywhere. I know you can do it. What the hell is going on, right? It's because as soon as I have a person beside me with a little notepad taking notes on what I'm doing, I freak out. My brain shuts down. So if I was an individual contributor and I was given a PIP, guess what? It won't work. I'll just do even worse. So it depends on the situation. It's just a tool to maybe give that last step. Hey, we've worked in all these. I've given you all the tools, all the time, all the training, everything you need. Now we're going to put some metrics to measure it. And if you and I agree, once you're done, either you've achieved it or you leave. Usually, and you and I have been in that spot as well, is that as soon as you say to a person, now it's time for you to deliver, most of the time they leave on their own.
They leave on their own, right?
Not necessarily because they don't want to deliver, but many times it's because that's the moment where they realize there's a disconnection. It's not going to happen, right? That's kind of my thinking process at it. So PIP by itself, and just using the word PIP, has a really bad, I feel that has a really tough impact mental-wise, and some people might just shut down. the other thing that sometimes people say is that it creates a fake result wave. So some people might say like, oh, I'm in a PIP, I have to make it work. And so they go into it, they exceed expectations. 2 months later,
yeah, they crank again.
They tank again. So it's just, that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I don't like them, but I know that they are useful and sometimes they're needed. Not necessarily with the expectation that will fix it, but it's kind of, okay, we've tried just with the kids, right? Or the dog. Like right now, you and I were training puppies. It's exactly the same thing. It's like, I've given you 3, 4, 5, 10 chances. I've trained you. I've given you everything. What's going to happen at this point?
Eventually, there's a consequence. Now, the one thing I will say, if you're a newish account sales, rep, maybe a newish sales leader, I'm going to ask you to park your PIP thinking, because you're thinking through the eyes of a sales rep and how I don't like that. That doesn't work for me. I hate when that happened to me, blah, blah, blah. Society has become litigious. All right. Lots of lawsuits, meaning if I let you go because you're not performing and I don't follow all the checks and balances, I open myself up to be sued by you. And now you suddenly cost me $50,000.
Really good point.
And a PIP is a way of saying we clearly communicated the expectations. They heard it. They signed off on it. There was agreement. And then, a month later, they never met it. It's a way of the employer protecting themselves. So you need to understand, it's not just about you, the sales rep. If you're getting to the point of having a PIP given to you, I would contend that there were several warning signs before that took place and you chose to ignore them. Now, as I said to Dale, there are some awful managers out there, and a lot of them just go, nope, you suck, here's a PIP. That's wrong. That's not a sales rep issue. That's a sales leader issue. That's my opinion. All right. Terminus. We've talked about that many times before, an ABM vendor. Is there a marketing exodus going on there? I don't know. Here's what we do know. We know that Justin Keller announced a week or two ago that he's looking for his next opportunity. He doesn't have a gig to go to. He's looking for his next gig. And Justin's been there for 3-4 years more, very accomplished. And we recently saw this week Daniel and Candela say the exact same thing. So you have your CMO leaving and you have a VP leaving. Is that a sign of a bigger issue? Now, I'm not trying to raise scuttlebutt. This is all public knowledge. I'm just pulling together multiple individual tweets. Now, with that said, here's my theory of what's going on. We've talked before about how companies will bring on they'll make certain hires, certain board members, etc., because they have the right pedigree to go public, or they have the right pedigree, to do a big ass venture round. So a lot of it is optics, because when people invest in you, or when you even go public, which is another form of investment, people are buying your shares, they want to know you can execute. And your valuation is dependent upon your perceived ability to execute. And so a lot of it's, do you have the all-star quarterback, right? Do you have the all-star sports players on your team? And so that's one way of doing it. Another thing people talk about rarely, but is equally critical in that process, is how do my numbers look? How does my EBITDA look? So the easiest way often to make yourself look good for either acquisition or a public offering to improve your EBITDA is to scale back your employees. In other words, when you have VC money, you go on a hiring spree to grow. And now when I'm ready to be acquired to go public, you'll often see those companies contract and they're shedding salary is what they're doing. So their EBITDA looks much, much better because they have much less overhead, much less expenses, right? Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, right? So that's what they're getting rid of. That's my theory, because these guys seem to still love Terminus. I'm not seeing any other signs of negativity or concern. That's my theory. I would suggest let's keep on watching to see if more people leave. But I will point out, while they're looking for other jobs, they are still there. And that's the interesting point. They are still employed. So whatever's going on, it is consensual between the employee and the employer, but all the same, tongues will wag, people will talk when high visibility people say they're looking for the next gig. I doubt either of these people are on the market very long at all. So that's my theory, Catherine. Do you have a different theory, or do you think I'm just brilliant and inspired?
I don't know about the theory, but I just find it weird, especially with that last post, to say my days are wrapping up by the end of the year. I'm looking for a job. If you know of anything, let me know. Like, that is just, especially at that level, it's just so strange, Mm-hmm. You don't give to the public an advice 3 months earlier. And I'm leaving my job by the end of these, and please hook me, connect me with anyone that might be a good fit. Yep. It seems like it's a little bit of, there's to your point, there's much more of this is an unpleasant decision and step rather than it is time to actually move,
Yep. But they're still there, which is the part that says this is clearly now we don't know if they're effectively done and just collecting a paycheck, or if they're still active in the day-to-day. We don't know that, and I haven't asked them. But either way, if you're looking for marketing talent, folks, give these people a shout because they're really, really good. So that's what I'll say. So that's water cooler. All right. It's time to go to the rant. Ollie, what's on your mind today, my friend?
Hey, what's up, everybody? So this is the penultimate rant on the drive. It's getting sad. I'm going to have to think of a really good one for next week. But this week, I just want to remind everyone, you have to be really careful who you listen to, who you take advice from. And I'm seeing this is becoming a bit more of a problem now than I realized, to be honest with you. So I go on my LinkedIn feeds and so on. I know I talk about LinkedIn quite a lot, but it's where I consume information. It's where I learn stuff. And I see people asking a question about, for example, how to grow your company. General question. And you get the fluffy marketer who's a career marketer, got the most goofy title in the world, means nothing, who hasn't grown a company. They've worked under 20 bosses all their life. And they come in with their LinkedIn followers, fluffing them up, giving them 50 likes on their stupid comment. And then you get the developer coming in, who also hasn't run a company, and they say something that's equally invalid. And then no one cares about what they said because they don't have loads of followers, but their suggestion's still there on merit. Fair play to both of these people for putting their argument forward. But people think, oh yeah, these two people said this equally dumb thing, must be clever, must be a good idea. The audience validates what they say. I probably have to agree with that now. And that's what I'm going to take forward. Instead of thinking, all right, I'm going to interview someone who knows what they're talking about. The been there and done it club is very, very small. Everybody else who wants to share their opinion and so on probably has not been there and done it in a lot of cases. Maybe I'm overlooking some people, but that is true. I found that personally true, and I find it more and more frustrating that people fall into that trap. We don't remember to ask people who have been there and done it specifically. We just put it out there, and people come along. Whether they're the right people or not is another thing. Maybe their intentions are all good, as I would imagine they are, but a lot of the time we're falling into that trap of listening to people that haven't been there and done it. They don't know. They're trying to give their best guess, but that might as well be as good as yours at that point. So I'm off my soapbox, guys. What do you think?
All right, Catherine, you heard Ollie's rant. I'm going to go to you first instead of me giving my opinion. I would like to know what you think of Ollie's rant.
I think he's spot on. I think really the premise or the ground of it, of being very careful of what you're listening to, what you're following, and what you are taking back. So take everything with a grain of salt is something that I've always mentioned to you. I feel that our sales profession right now, which I adore to pieces, is hurting from the multiple million advices out there of self-proclaimed experts, that people just take it by heart and go with it and expect success or expect certain outcomes, and then that same people become entitled, and so it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, there's two reactions I have. One, folks, critical thinking. I said it before, I'll say it again. Use discernment. When someone declares themselves as a rock star, as a success story, they share a hero story where they're the hero of the story. They overcome massive obstacles. And oh, by the way, they've been in the industry for 18 months. All right. Or 2 years. Sorry, you're still at entry level, starting your career at the bottom of the ladder, and you should know better. All right. What they say may actually be right, but you need to discern and have context. So, for example, if you've got somebody who is I'm using this as an example, a huge Democrat, and they make this statement nonstop. They have a position also. They espouse a position. You need to say they're viewing that through the filter of a Democrat. They may be partly right, but they're ignoring what a Republican would say to counter that point. So they're only partly right. And I'm going to have a filter that understands that a little what they say is valid, but the rest I don't know about. So when someone declares himself an expert, be discerning. All right. Do they have the pedigree? Second part, though, that always bothers me is the tribal nature, where an expert says something and their tribe gets on and supports them, even though what that person said was bullshit. And they have no idea what they're talking about. And I see this all the time. I see sales reps making claims, self-declared experts making claims about company decisions and directions when they've never been a manager, a sales leader, or an executive at a company ever. So they would even know how to spell EBITDA, let alone what it means. But so they have a definition in their mind of what it should be, and they're putting their opinion out there. So what bothers me is the tribe supports them. So if you're going to take on an influencer and you're going to argue with them, and I do this on a regular basis, Dale and I had a great back and forth. Yep. You better have your data. You better be able to stand tall and stand strong and make reasoned counterpoints. But if you walk away after they try to overwhelm you, no, I'm right, you're wrong, and you're an idiot. If you walk away because you want to avoid that conflict, you never should have engaged them in the first place because you look like a moron. So only engage them if you're ready and prepared for a fight. Not that you should fight, but it's a mindset. It's like sales. You got to be, if this happens, is this something I want to engage in? Because if it's not, I'm not going to comment in the first place. If it is, do it. And I've made a great reputation engaging people, but trust me, behind the scenes, there's many times when I'm full of anxiety while the discourse is taking place. So there we go.
It's like every single time that you're about to share your thoughts, your ideas, your input, is be ready to take the heat. You don't know. Same as sales, to your point, is like we're talking about humans, and you really cannot predict 100% how the other person is going to react or what they're going to say. So you got to be ready for absolutely every single possible scenario. I like this topic as well, and I'm sorry to interrupt you because I know that you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's okay.
But it was because I was just remembering. I was listening to these podcasts earlier this week, and it was very aligned to it because it was also highlighting how titles are confusing a lot of people. Again, when they come and provide their advice and they're VP of sales, and then you go and look into their, professional career, and it's like 6 months as an SDR, 8 months as an AE, boom, VP of sales. And you're like, do you really have enough experience to kind of speak about what you're about to say or saying right now with such convincement? Or do you think you need a little bit more of that field work, right? In sales, definitely that experience is what comes into play. Have you been exposed to it so that you really know how it is in the real life?
Words of wisdom right there from Catherine. She's a rock star, folks. Follow her on LinkedIn. All right, Catherine, we're going to wrap things up. This is the second last show we're doing. And here's the next show, folks. We're having the whole game back together. Catherine, Ollie, me, Sean, and even Daniel's going to make an appearance. Tune in next week. Until then, thanks for joining us here on The Drive. Take care.